So, this is your moment. Any questions? Okay, well, yes? Okay, go.
What was it about Kevin, Ziggy, that made you trust him to make this film?
So for Ziggy, what was it that had
you before I met Kevin, we had been through some ups and downs with the film. And then when I met Kevin in LA, you know, I met him as a person, not just thinking about him as a film director, but as a person. And, you know, I like him as a person, and so from that, you know, I trusted him because I felt he was a good person who could not only had the credentials to do the job, but was a person that I could feel. It wasn't just about a film director, but this is a person that I could, hey, it's my friend, you know, I could feel him, so that's why I trusted him, you know.
Yes?
I want to compliment you on an extraordinary film, beautifully told film.
Thank you.
And even at 2.5 hours, you could not have included everything. So, Ziggy, what would you like to share with us about your dad that wasn't in the film?
We have to repeat the questions here, everybody can hear. The question is, there was a compliment, but the question is, in 2.5 hours, you still could include everything, so what else would Ziggy like to share about his dad?
We've been joking amongst ourselves that, you know, what's the difference between an authoritative film and a definitive film? And my answer to that is about 30 minutes.
I mean, there's some element, I mean, we could have gone so much more in-depth in some of the stuff, and I mean, you would have been here for a long time, you know? So, I mean, maybe we'll do part 2, Kevin.
When I showed the first cut to Ziggy, I think it was around 3 hours, and I said to him, you know, we're going to have to cut an hour to get it down to 2 hours, which is what we were contractually meant to deliver. And Ziggy was like, I don't think you can cut anything, he said. So then I did cut half an hour, which was, it felt like I'm not usually an indulgent filmmaker. I mean, I don't think this is indulgent. I think that Bob's life is extraordinary, and he's one of the major cultural figures of the 20th century, and he deserves a long film. You know, I think Martin Scorsese gave. Martin Scorsese gave 4.5 hours to Bob Dylan, and I think that Bob is at least as worthy. But unfortunately, he lived for 36 years, so you know, maybe 2.5 hours was the right amount.
Question?
Yes, go ahead.
First of all, Ziggy, I want to say thank you for changing my life 20 years ago in Red Rocks. Coming to Colorado, I really appreciate it. But you know, your father's final message of the movie of, you know, living together is all I want. I mean, it rings true right now, this political uncertainty that we have. What's your message in this really troubling time for us? Right?
Well, it's very simple too, it's just love. And that's basically it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just going to follow up on him. Like, the eye changed his life 20 years ago. The eye's father changed my life in 1975. I've been Rasta ever since. I'll never filter out. So just wanted a blessing for that.
Thank you.
We're getting some Rasta blessings. That's the good way to say it up here. Yes.
Any footage or photos that was a surprise, came out of nowhere?
Question is, was there any footage or photos that was a surprise, came out of nowhere?
Yeah, a lot of stuff. I mean, there isn't, one of the things that's interesting about Bob's life for such a major cultural figure, for such a major recording artist, is that there's hardly any photos of him and no footage of him at all for the first 11 or 12 years of his career until about 1973. So every little photograph is a prized possession. And so we'd come across one photograph that hadn't been seen before, and we'd get very excited about it. But we'd also get excited about some footage that we found that had never been seen before. The footage that you see at the beginning of the film of Bob doing Exodus, and later on there's a couple of other clips from that same thing. That was footage that's never been seen before, in which Neville Garrick, who appears consistently throughout the film, who's a wonderful character, who was the Whalers' art director. a neighbor of his came to him and said, "Oh, I hear you used to have something with Bob Marley. I've got some film that I took of him when I was 21 in Boston. Are you interested in seeing it?" And he said, "Well, yeah, I mean, I'm involved in this documentary." And there was a few things like that. So, for instance, the unheard versions of No Woman, No Cry and that kind of thing. The collectors have a lot of stuff, and we would go to collectors and plead with them to let us have those things.
I think even more important than the footage or the photos is actually the stories. That I think the stories that I've heard in this, I've never heard, like the Wailers rehearsing in the cemetery. It's like, what? Really? Or even the issue of Bob's race, or the color of his skin. Those are the things that really capture my attention.
Those are the things that made me understand him. I mean, I suppose from a very simple way, I set off on making this film, trying to just understand who Bob was. Where we all know the image, he's this legendary figure, he's an icon, but who was he as a man? And there was those things where, for instance, his half-sister talks about the experience of Bob going to see his white family in Jamaica and what happened there, and how he wrote the song Cornerstone out of it. It was those sort of things that suddenly make you understand who he was and what motivated him, what drove him.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Why did you decide to not have more interviews with the children of Bob Marley in the movies?
The question is, why aren't there more interviews with the children?
Well, for a very, very simple reason that the only two children who were really old enough to remember Bob in detail, who were, by the time he died, in my opinion, were Ziggy and Sedella. We did actually do an interview with Stephen Marley, but we couldn't find a place for it. It's on the DVD extras, along with lots of other stuff, some concert footage and that kind of thing. Just purely because of age. Because I didn't want this film to be people saying, "Oh, I heard Bob Marley was wonderful," or "I heard he did this." It was meant to be sort of first-person testimony.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. I mean, Sedella and I are the oldest of Bob's children, and because of that, we've seen a lot more. The younger kids, a little bit, but we a lot more. So I think that was appropriate.
Yes.
Have all the children seen the film?
The question is, has all the family seen the film?
Yeah, I think so. Everybody has seen it by now. And I think what most of us feel is the emotion. There's joy about that sadness of what happened to him near the end there, and just I'm 43 right now, and when I realized Bob was so young, like 36 wasn't old. He was such a young person. The film bring back all of those thoughts to me and give me a whole other view of Bob. That he was so young. So it definitely bring up some thoughts and some emotions in us.
You have follow-up, go ahead, sir.
Yes. I saw in the film in Madison Square Garden, you said everyone was standing and he had arrived in America. But I was telling you, I saw him the year before, 2 years before, in Austin, Texas, in 1978. And from the moment he came on stage, the whole audience at Home Auditorium was standing, and the whole room lifted the entire show. And it was incredible. I've never forgotten it. Until I went to Ziggy, I went to your concert in New York, outside, and everyone was standing from the beginning. And I felt the same thing. I just wanted to let you know that. So I wonder, it was before that concert, so I wonder, I think
he was just, I think the point was that he was just a kind of niche. He was kind of college, kind of sophisticated college kids kind of person, and after that he became mainstream. I think that was my understanding of it. And he really wanted to be mainstream in America, and I think it annoyed him that he couldn't get airplay here, and he couldn't really get a grasp on the audience.
Okay, why do you think that was? Why did you make the movie? Did you have any new
Well, I think, you know, I can't remember what we cut out of the film now and what's in the film, but people do talk about how important it was for him to reach an African-American audience, and that it was really frustrated him that he couldn't get to them. And I think it's really because of two factors. One is that airplay, radio, is so formatted here in the United States. It's just the way things are. You know, that you either listen to kind of rock, or you listen to kind of soul, or you listen to, and that doesn't exist in a lot of other countries. And I think his reggae didn't really fit into one of the formats at the time. So he started to, late in his career, he started to make music that was more kind of R&B friendly, I guess. Would You Be Loved, and that sort of thing. Could You Be Loved, rather than was made in a way that it would appeal to an R&B audience. And then I think the other thing was that his message wasn't the message that people necessarily wanted to hear in Latin America. That's certainly my interpretation. But later on, they did.
Yeah, I mean, I think anybody that saw Bob live, and I think that's where his biggest impact was in America. Was once you saw Bob live, you never forget it. And because radio wasn't so friendly, he had to work extra hard to get people, you know, excited about his music. So he did want to reach to the African American audiences here, because I think where he's coming from, and at that time on the stage of his philosophy and concepts about Africa and stuff like that, I think he wished that the African Americans could realize that consciousness that he had realized, and he wished they could see what he had seen. But I think the live concert was, you know, right there. So I think that's where his impact is.
We've got time for one more. So, okay, standing up.
I just wanted to say, a guy was in high school when Bob Marley died, and as a kid growing up in America, we did listen at home. It was very much the older teenagers. They played it for us, and during that whole kind of Black Power movement in the 70s, we were listening, but it wasn't mainstream. What we were listening to wasn't mainstream, so that's why y'all would know that.
Justice actually said that she was in the speaker was in high school when Bob passed, and she said they were listening at home. It just wasn't mainstream, but they were definitely listening. So this is a big honor for us to be able to show this film. It was just, we are thrilled by it. We love it, and we wish you great success with it. And
well, thank you very much for having us in the film.